My family had always lied to me. I didn't know it yet. Sitting at that elegant Sunday brunch, sipping my mimosa like it was just another normal Sunday morning. I didn't know that every smile, every "how's work going?" every "you re so independent" was built on a lie so monstrous it would bring down everything I thought I knew about my life. While I was sitting there feeling out of place in my Target dress, surrounded by my perfect family in their designer clothes, I had no idea that my grandmother was about to say something that would expose a truth so devastating it would change everything forever. Because what I was about to discover wasn't just that they had lied to me. It was that they had watched me suffer in a rotten basement for 5 years, eating dinner off the floor like an animal, while $200,000, with my name on it, was sitting in my father's bank account. They had turned my misery into their wealth, and they had all pretended like nothing was wrong. My name is Maya, and this is the story of how one question from my grandmother revealed that my father had stolen $200,000 meant for me, leaving me to live in a basement for 5 years while he lived off my future. It was a Sunday morning in October in Chicago, one of those crisp autumn days where the leaves are just starting to turn, but the sun still feels warm on your face. We had all gathered at the rooftop, this upscale restaurant in Lincoln Park that overlooks Lake Michigan, the kind of place where a single dish costs more than what I spent on groceries for an entire week. I remember sitting there, feeling out of place in my thrift store blouse, watching my family chat about their comfortable lives. My mother, always perfectly put together, discussing her latest yoga retreat in Sedona. My sister Brooklyn, barely looking up from her iPhone, complaining about her finals at Northwestern. And my father, Marcus, cutting his eggs Benedict with the precision of a surgeon. And then there was my grandmother, Grandma Claire, 83 years old, still sharp as a tack, with that gentle smile that had always made me feel like someone in this family actually cared about me. That I need to tell you about my life over the past 5 years, about how I ended up living in that basement I called home. Before I dive into this incredible story of family betrayal and the revenge that followed, let me know where you're rewatching from, and hit that like and subscribe button if you've ever felt like the forgotten one in your family. Trust me, this story might give you the courage you need to stand up for yourself too. It all started 5 years earlier, when I graduated from the University of Illinois with a degree in architecture and a 3.8 GPA. I had big dreams, ambitious projects. I wanted to open my own firm, specialize in sustainable design, make a difference in the world. My father told me I had to figure it out myself, that it was time to become independent. Maya, he had said that day, sitting in his home office in a Winnetka house, it's time you learn what it really means to work. Don't expect handouts from us. Build your own future. So I started looking for work, but the market was brutal. After months of searching, I found a part-time job at a small architecture firm for $15 an hour. It wasn't even enough for a studio apartment in the suburbs. That's when I found the Craigslist ad. Room for rent in basement South Side, $600 month, cash only. Mrs. Rodriguez, a 60-year-old woman who chain-smoked Marlboros, showed me what would become my personal hell. It was literally a basement. Drop ceiling tiles, a single basement window that looked out onto people's ankles walking by. Water damage had stained the walls, and there was a persistent smell of mold and cigarettes. The furnace rumbled next to my improvised bed, a mattress on the floor that I'd gotten from Goodwill. For 5 years, that was my world. I woke up every morning to the sound of footsteps above my head, the groaning of old pipes, the acrid smell of smoke filtering through the thin walls. I ate sitting on the floor because there was no room for a table. I worked days at the architecture firm and nights at a 24-hour diner in Chinatown to make ends meet. Meanwhile, my family lived their golden life. My mother had renovated their kitchen for the 3rd time in 5 years. My sister had gotten a brand new BMW for her birthday. My father had bought a vacation home in Lake Geneva, Wisconsin. But let's get back to that Sunday morning in October. We were all sitting around the window table of the restaurant, with the view of Lake Michigan stretching endlessly before us. My grandmother Claire wore her favorite pearl necklace, the one my grandfather had given her for their 50th anniversary before he passed. Her silver hair was perfectly styled, and she had that warm smile that reminded me of Sunday dinners when I was little. She was telling a story about when she was young, about when she and Grandpa bought their first house in Evanston back in 1965. Then, suddenly, she turned to me with that affectionate smile I knew so well. She raised her glass of champagne as if about to make a toast. "Maya, sweetheart," she said, her voice carrying across the table with genuine warmth. "I'm so happy that you're enjoying the condo I bought you." The world stopped. I felt the mimosa I had just sipped burn down my throat like battery acid. The background noise of the restaurant, the clinking of silverware, the soft jazz playing overhead, the murmur of other diners, everything faded to white noise. I could feel every pair of eyes at our table swiveling toward me like searchlights. My mother's perfectly glossed lips parted in confusion, her coffee cup frozen halfway to her mouth. My sister's thumb stopped mid-scroll on her phone screen. And my father dropped his fork with a clatter that seemed to echo through the restaurant's sudden silence. "I live in a basement," I whispered, my voice barely audible above the ambient noise. Her smile faltered like a light bulb dimming. "What, honey?" I cleared my throat, finding my voice. "I never got any condo, Grandma. I've been living in a windowless basement for 5 years." The silence that fell over our table was deafening. My grandmother blinked slowly, like she was trying to process what I had just said. "What are you talking about?" she asked, her voice smaller now, confused. I looked around the table at my family, my mother reaching for her latte with trembling hands, my sister finally putting down her phone, my father suddenly fascinated by his water glass. "The truth?" I said, my voice gaining strength. "You never sent me anything, Grandma. The only thing I've gotten from this family in the past decade was radio silence." That's when my grandmother said something that made my blood freeze. "Wait, hold on. I wired the down payment to your father 5 years ago. He told me he surprised you with it after graduation." My mouth went bone dry. I watched as my father's face drained of all color, turning the gray of old concrete. My mother turned to him slowly, her movements careful and deliberate. "You said you helped her find a cute place in Lincoln Park," she whispered, her voice tight with dawning horror. I locked eyes with my father. "Dad," I said, my voice steady despite the tornado of emotions raging inside me. "You kept it, didn't you?" He shifted uncomfortably in his chair, his mouth opening and closing like a fish out of water. I was planning to." "No," I cut him off, my voice razor sharp. "You were planning to keep it." Someone at the table gasped. My grandmother sat back in her chair, her lips pressed into a thin line, her knuckles white as she gripped her pearls. I sat up straighter, finding a strength I didn't know I had. "You told me to work harder, to stop expecting handouts. All this time, you let me serve hash browns at 3 a.m., sleep next to a furnace, live like a rat in a hole. Meanwhile, you were sitting on the money that was supposed to give me a life." The air around our table had turned toxic. I could feel my hands shaking, my heart hammering against my ribs like it was trying to escape. "I wasn't going to say anything today," I continued, my voice getting stronger with each word. "But since we're all here celebrating, maybe it's time we stop pretending." And with that, I stood up ... and walked out. Behind me, I heard chairs scraping, stumbling footsteps, voices calling my name. But I didn't stop. I couldn't stop. The restaurant corridor was mercifully quiet, but the rage burning inside me was anything but. I made it to the parking garage before I heard footsteps behind me. Maya, wait! My grandmother called out. I turned around, and the woman I saw wasn't the same one who had been smiling at me 20 minutes ago. She looked older, smaller somehow. Her smile was gone, replaced by something I hadn't seen from her in years, pure, unfiltered grief. You really never got the condo, she said, and it wasn't a question. I shook my head. I've been renting a basement room from a woman who smokes 3 packs a day. The walls are yellow from nicotine. There's a space heater that trips the breaker every time I use it. I pay rent in cash because she doesn't trust banks. I've eaten more ramen noodles than I can count. She swallowed hard. Your father said you didn't want help. He said you were being independent, that you were proud. A bitter laugh escaped my lips. I asked him for help finding a job once. He said, and I quote, "Maybe try waiting tables first. It builds character." My grandmother's eyes flashed with something dangerous. He said you were ungrateful, that you'd moved into your dream place and didn't even call to thank me. I didn't know there was anything to thank you for. She rubbed her face with her hands and let out a shaky breath. I trusted him. The silence stretched between us, but this time it wasn't uncomfortable. It was the silence of 2 people who had both been betrayed by someone they loved. Then she said something that surprised me. I want to make this right. I crossed my arms, suddenly exhausted. How? I want to see where you live. My head snapped up. Why? Because if it's as bad as you say, and I believe it is, then he stole from both of us. And I'm done letting anyone lie to me. That night, I drove my grandmother to my basement apartment on the south side. The irony wasn't lost on me. Here I was, giving my grandmother the grand tour of the place I'd been too ashamed to let anyone see. The building was a rundown 2-flat in Englewood. Peeling paint on the siding, weeds growing through cracks in the concrete. I led her down the narrow concrete steps to a door that looked like it belonged in a horror movie. The single bare bulb flickered as I unlocked the door, casting eerie shadows on the walls. The smell hit us immediately: stale cigarettes, mold, and something else I'd never been able to identify. Welcome to my palace, I said, stepping aside to let her in. She entered slowly, her eyes taking in everything. The second-hand futon with the broken frame. The plastic storage containers I used as furniture. The water-stained ceiling tiles. The twin mattress on the floor pushed against the water heater, because there was nowhere else to put it. For several seconds, her expression didn't change. Then she sat down on the edge of my mattress and let out the saddest sound I'd ever heard. This is where my granddaughter has been living, she said softly. I nodded. Since graduation. Her eyes filled with tears. He said he was saving the rest for your wedding. I thought it made sense. There is no rest, Grandma. You gave him $200,000. That money disappeared the second it hit his account. She looked at the floor, then back at me. Not anymore, she said, standing up. Tomorrow, we're going to the bank and my lawyer. And after that, your father and I are going to have a very long conversation. I didn't smile, but something inside me shifted. For the first time in 5 years, I felt like someone was actually on my side. If you're enjoying this story of family betrayal and justice so far, make sure to hit that subscribe button. We're just getting to the best part. And what happens next will blow your mind. The next morning, I woke up to the smell of burnt coffee and the sound of my grandmother on the phone with her lawyer. I stayed in the hallway, barefoot on the cold linoleum, listening to her speak in a voice I'd never heard before. I don't care if it's Sunday, Robert. Find the paperwork. I want every wire transfer traced, every cent accounted for. And I want you to draft a letter stating that I no longer authorize Marcus Torres to act on my behalf in any financial capacity. Her voice was ice-cold steel. This wasn't the gentle grandmother I knew. This was a woman who had built a successful real estate empire from nothing, who had survived the Great Depression, who had raised 4 children as a single mother after my grandfather died. This was a woman who didn't tolerate being lied to. By noon, we were sitting in a glass-walled office in the Loop. My grandmother had pulled strings to get an emergency appointment with her private banker, a sharp woman in her 50s who was clicking through records on her computer. "I see the transfer here," she said finally, adjusting her reading glasses. "From Claire Torres' account to Marcus Torres, marked as gift for Maya's condo down payment." She turned the monitor toward us. It was all there, the date, the exact amount, everything my grandmother had said. $200,000 wired 5 years ago. But then she clicked again, and my heart dropped into my stomach. "I see another transfer here," she continued. 5 days later, the entire amount was moved into a separate investment account under Marcus's name only. No mention of the original purpose, no note about it being held for you. My hands clenched into fists in my lap. My grandmother stared at the screen in deadly silence. "Can I get printed copies of all of this?" she asked, her voice calm but lethal. "Of course, Mrs. Torres." When the banker stepped away, my grandmother turned to me. "He betrayed you, and he lied to me. This isn't just family drama, Maya. This is theft." I nodded slowly. "What do we do now?" "We handle it together." That afternoon, we drove straight to my parents' house in Winnetka. I hadn't been there in 2 years, but nothing had changed. The same perfectly manicured lawn, the same luxury cars in the circular driveway, the same house where I'd grown up believing I was loved. My grandmother rang the doorbell, and my father answered, looking half confused, half annoyed. His expression changed completely when he saw both of us standing there. "We need to talk," my grandmother said. "I'm actually pretty busy right now." "Sit down." My grandmother didn't raise her voice. She didn't need to. My father sat down. We gathered in the living room, the same room where I'd opened Christmas presents as a kid, where I'd watched Saturday morning cartoons, where I'd once felt safe and loved. My grandmother placed a thick manila folder on the coffee table. Then she dropped the bomb. "You told me Maya was living in the condo I bought her, but the money never made it there. You took it. You stole it. And you lied to your daughter and to me." My father actually laughed nervously. "Come on, Mom. You're being dramatic. She's been living in a basement." My grandmother snapped. "Eating ramen noodles, working 2 jobs, while you used her money to pad your investment portfolio. I was holding it for her future." "Don't," I said, my voice cutting through the air like a blade. "Don't you dare lie again. You told me I was lazy, entitled, that I didn't deserve help. Meanwhile, you were living off money that was supposed to give me a chance." My grandmother opened the folder and spread the bank records across the coffee table. "I've already spoken with Robert. We'll pursue legal action if we have to, but you're going to pay back every penny. And you're going to explain yourself to the whole family at next Sunday's brunch. No more secrets. No more playing the noble father." My mother, who had been hovering in the doorway, whispered, "Marcus, please tell me this isn't true." But my father said nothing. The silence stretched on, heavy and damning. Then my grandmother turned to me. "You're staying with me starting tonight. I've already called my realtor. We'll find you a proper place to live." I looked at my father one last time. The man who had once told me I'd never amount to anything without his guidance now looked small and pathetic, shrinking under the weight of his own lies. I didn't feel victorious. I felt free. The following Sunday, brunch was held at the same restaurant. Same table, same faces. But everything had changed. This time, I wasn't squeezed into the corner seat. I sat next to my grandmother at the head of the table, her hand resting protectively on mine. When my father walked in, he looked like he'd aged a decade in 1 week. The usual fake charm was gone from his face. My mother stayed close to him, tight-lipped and tense. My sister Brooklyn wore sunglasses indoors, like she didn't want to see what was about to unfold. My grandmother stood up before anyone could pretend this was a normal Sunday. "I'll keep this brief," she said, her voice carrying across the restaurant. "I've brought everyone here because last week I discovered that a terrible injustice was done in my name." The restaurant seemed to go quiet. Even the servers stopped moving. 5 years ago, I sent money my own savings to help Maya start her adult life. I was told she received it. I was told she was thriving. She turned slightly toward me. That was all a lie. I could hear whispers from nearby tables. People were starting to pay attention, realizing they were witnessing something dramatic. "Marcus took that money," my grandmother continued. "He invested it, hid it, and then let his daughter suffer in poverty, making her feel worthless, lazy, and dependent, all while pretending to be a caring father." A wave of murmurs rippled through our extended family seated around us. My Aunt Linda gasped. My cousin Jake stared in shock, clearly putting the pieces together. "From this moment forward," my grandmother said, turning to my father, "you will not touch another penny of my estate. Every asset, every trust, every future inheritance, it's all being restructured. You've lost that privilege." Then, slowly, she pulled a folded document from her purse and placed it in front of my father. "I want you to read this out loud." My father looked at the paper like it was radioactive. "Mom, I don't think now." His hands shook as he opened the letter. When he began to read, his voice cracked with every word. "To my family, I stole from my daughter, Maya Torres. I took funds meant for her future and lied about their purpose. I have wronged her, my mother, and the integrity of this family. I accept full responsibility and will repay the full amount within 6 months. I am deeply sorry." When he finished, there was only silence. No gasps, no murmurs, just the weight of truth settling over everyone like a lid blanket. For the first time in years, I looked at my father and didn't feel small. I felt seen. That night, in my new apartment, yes, my grandmother had already found me a beautiful one-bedroom in Lincoln Park with actual windows. I stood on the balcony looking out at the Chicago skyline. My grandmother was there with me, both of us wrapped in blankets, drinking hot tea. "I still can't believe you never asked for help," she said. "I had given up asking," I replied softly. "I'm sorry I didn't check on you sooner." "I'm not," I said, "because now I know who's really in my corner." In the months that followed, my life transformed in ways I never could have imagined. My grandmother didn't just give me the money, she invested in my future. She helped me start my own architecture firm, specializing in sustainable design and affordable housing. My first major project was a mixed-use development in Pilsen affordable housing for young professionals and families. As I walked through the construction site, I couldn't help but think about all those nights I'd spent in that basement, sketching building designs by lamplight, dreaming of the spaces I would create if I ever got the chance. I designed apartments that maximized every square foot, with built-in storage, multi-purpose rooms, and floor-to-ceiling windows that brought in natural light. I incorporated green roofs, energy-efficient systems, and community spaces that brought neighbors together. When the project was completed, it was featured in Architectural Digest. The headline read, "Young Chicago Architect Revolutionizes Affordable Housing." There was my name, Maya Torres, in bold letters on the cover. 6 months after that Sunday at the restaurant, my father paid back every penny as promised. But he never showed up to family gatherings again. His apologies stayed on paper, and that was fine with me. Because sometimes the absence of toxic people is the greatest gift of all. A year later, it was my turn to host Sunday brunch. Not in a restaurant, but in my home. Real dishes, real laughter, real sunlight streaming through my windows. The dining table was set with plates I'd chosen myself, glasses that caught the morning light, fresh flowers my grandmother had brought from her garden. My grandmother sat to my right, my mother to my left. My sister was helping in the kitchen, and for the first time in years, I felt like I belonged somewhere. As I served the fresh bagels from the shop downstairs, I caught my grandmother watching me with a soft smile. "This," she said, "this is what I had in mind when I sent that money 5 years ago." I squeezed her hand. "Me too, Grandma, me too." Have you ever been underestimated by someone in your family, or experienced a betrayal of their trust? Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is simply refuse to accept their version of who you are. I'd love to read your thoughts in the comments below about how you've dealt with family betrayal, or found the courage to stand up for yourself. If this story of justice and family drama resonated with you, please hit that like button, subscribe for more tales of revenge and redemption, and share this with someone who might need to hear that they deserve better. Thank you for listening, and remember, you are never too small to stand up for what's right. Today, when people ask me about that Sunday brunch, I tell them it was the day my real life began. Not because of the money or the apartment or even the career success, but because it was the day I stopped accepting less than I deserved. My grandmother gave me more than money that day. She gave me back my dignity, my dreams, and my belief in myself. She showed me that family isn't just about blood. It's about choice, about showing up, about doing what's right even when it's hard. And the best part, every day I get to wake up in my beautiful home, go to work creating spaces that matter, and come home to a family that chose to heal and grow together. Every day, I get to be living proof that no one else gets to determine your worth. Sometimes the best revenge isn't about destroying your enemies. Sometimes it's about building a life so beautiful, so meaningful, so full of purpose that their attempts to diminish you become irrelevant. Sometimes the best revenge is simply succeeding.